Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Torah Study with Rabbi P. I'm Rabbi P. You're not. And here, everybody is in the room. Say hello. Hello. There you go. You see what enthusiastic crowd we have here on a rainy California afternoon. But inside the JCC, it's nice and warm and toasty as we get ready to tackle one of the most disturbing stories really in the Torah today. All right, so let's get down right to it. Last week, we talked about the construction of the tabernacle with all of its vessels. Very, very precise. To the half cubit, everything, perfectly. This week, the story starts off. God is commanding the Jewish people to give a half a shekel, that every year we're going to give this half a shekel. It's going to be a poll tax. And with this half shekel, we're going to buy all of the communal sacrifices. It'll be an atonement, etc., etc. Then it goes through a number of different mitzvahs that we need. We need anointing oil, and we need to keep Shabbos. It doesn't want the construction of the temple to supersede Shabbos, and everything is going along kind of smoothly here. We already got the Torah, we have the commandments, we got Moses. Moses tells them, listen, you stay here, I'm going to go up there, get the law, come back. Everything is going to be hunky-dory. Everything is going to be just perfect. And here we go. Chapter 32. So I'm going to read a few verses and then we're going to try to unpack what this means. 493. Okay? The people saw that Moses had delayed in descending the mountain. Now Moses had told them, I'm going up to the mountain. Now we're not, there's a difference of opinion if Moses told them I'll be right back, or I'm going to take some time, I'll be back in a couple of weeks. Exactly what did Moses tell them? Because if Moses says, I'm just going to go up to get the two sets of tablets, then how long could that have taken? No, they're just an afternoon. You go up the mountain, you get the tablets, you come down, you give the tablets, everybody's okay. But he wasn't. Moses was up in the mountain for how many days? 40 days, because he was going over the entire Torah with God, and mitzvahs, and he was explaining to them and everything, all like that. So now the 40th day comes, and the people see that Moses had delayed in coming down from the mountain. Why did they delay? Because they miscalculated for one day. Moses says, I'll be back in 40 days. He meant 40 full days. So they calculated Monday, and he was supposed to come back on Tuesday. Okay? So Monday, they're getting nervous. Where's Moses? Where's Moses? Where's Moses? Okay. And the people, so they gathered around Aaron, and they said to him, not what they should have said is, when do you think Moses is coming back? That would have been the right question. When do you think? And he would have told them, look, you miscalculated. He'll be back tomorrow. Don't worry. If that had happened, would have been great. We wouldn't have had a story to talk about today. Would have been a very short class, right? Gone, but bingo. But he didn't say that. What did the people say to Aaron? They already made their own decision of what happened to Moses. Moses died. To them, Moses is gone. So they say to Aaron, rise up. Get up. What are you doing there, sitting there and doing nothing? I mean, we're in a calamity. We're in a crisis situation here. Our leader is gone. We don't know what happened to him. We want you to make for us gods that will go before us. For this man, Moses, who brought us up from the land of Egypt, we don't know what became of him. He's gone. So we want you, Aaron, since you're the chief bottle washer instead of Moses, you're number 2, vice president. We want you to do something and to make us some gods that are going to lead us. Now, it's a little confusing here that we'll get back to the sentence just in a moment. Aaron says to them, this is where we're in trouble right now. So, what am I going to do? These people are coming to me. They want me to make this false god for them that's going to lead them and take the place of Moses. Why didn't they just tell Aaron, you become now. You lead us. Okay, that's a different story. We'll get to that in a moment. But, so Aaron says to them, I know it can, I know exactly what to do. And to do that, I'm going to ask them for money. That's it. I'm going to do fundraising. You want a god? It's going to cost you some money. Now I know for sure, the moment I say, cough up some geld, what are they going to do? No, it's okay, fine. We're all right. We're all right. That's okay, no?
It took him 5 minutes to let me in.
I can't believe it. I told them, I warned them about you. That's why. I said, a dangerous lady is coming today.
Very problematic.
Very, very dangerous. Very dangerous. So they don't say to Aaron, you lead us, make a god for us. So Aaron says, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to delay them by asking them for money. Because as soon as you ask for money, you make a fundraising campaign, everybody scatters. They're all gone. Okay, they're all gone. Finished. That's the way it is. Goodbye. So Aaron says to them, okay, you want me to make a god for you? Remove the rings of gold that are in the ears of your wives, sons, and daughters. Now look at closely what he says. I want you to go and get all the jewelry from your sons, your daughters, your wives, which tells us in those days if your children wore jewelry, it was okay. Today we get nervous. If my son walked in with a nose ring, I get very nervous. It wouldn't be such a good thing. But in those days, obviously, the sons, the daughters, and the wives, and bring them to me. So Aaron thought that this would be a perfect way of delaying them. Because the guys would say, what are you, nuts? I'm going to go to my wife, I'm going to give me your jewelry, and we're going to make a god out of your jewelry. Forget about it. It's not going to happen. But what he did is he miscalculated. Because what happened was the entire people, means, the men, removed the gold rings that were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. They said, no, we don't have to go to our wives. Here's gold. And they presented him a stack of gold, and they said, do something with this. Okay? He took it from their hands and bound it up in a cloth. And he figured out, you know what, I'll just throw it away. I'll get rid of it. And fashion it into a molten calf. Now, he didn't fashion it into a molten calf. It's going to be fashioned into a molten calf. We'll see in a minute how. And they saw that the calf walked out of this furnace, because Moses took Aaron, I keep saying Moses, but it's Aaron. Aaron tied up their jewelry and threw it into a furnace. Let it burn over there. Who cares? All of a sudden, a calf came out, and I'll I'll explain why a calf came out. They said, not he said, this is your God, O Israel, which brought you up from the land of Egypt. This is the calf that he's going to lead us now. Aaron's son built an altar before him and called out and said, a festival for Hashem tomorrow. Again, he was trying to delay till Moses will come back. And once Moses comes back, everything will be okay. All right. And they rose early the next day and offered up elevation offerings and brought peace offerings. The people sat to eat and drink and got up to revel. They were having the time of their life. Because it's like, when I go to the washroom, I saw here what happened before. The teacher leaves the room, everybody started to party here. It was screaming and dancing and going on and reveling and all of that stuff. So the teacher was gone. Who's the teacher? Moses. Aaron was a nice guy, so the people got up in the morning and they made a festival and they were dancing and singing and having a good time. Where's Moses at this time? Up talking, communing with heaven, with God. Then God spoke to Moses and he said, get out of here. Go descend for your people that you brought up from the land of Egypt. So now he's blaming him. For your people. See, not my people.
Rabbi, it's your people.
You see, he tells him, it's your people. He didn't say exactly. For your people that you brought up from the land of Egypt have become corrupt. They have strayed quickly from the way that I have commanded them. They made themselves a molten calf, prostrated themselves, and sacrificed and said, this is the God of Israel who brought you up from the land of Egypt. Okay, so that's the basic story. They have a golden calf, and then a little... Yes?
The golden calf?
Who?
Aaron?
No, I'll explain to you what happened with the golden calf. So, what happens now, God tells Moses, go down because the people have been corrupt. And then, God tells them, okay, please do me a favor. Don't destroy them because God makes them an offer. I'll take out the people. I'll make you into a great nation. And Moses says, no, don't do that. These are my people and my destiny is tied up into these people. So, forgive them and let them go and whatever. And he pleads for them. And ultimately God says, okay, you know what? I'm not going to destroy them, but I want you to go down there because, the people are corrupt. Moses comes down from the mountain after pacifying God, and he sees the people there, and he gets very, 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 very angry. And what is he holding in his arms? The 10 Commandments, the 2 tablets. He smashes them on the ground, and he takes the golden calf, and he crushes it, and he takes the ashes, and he puts it into some water, and he makes everybody drink of that liquid. And whoever worshipped the golden calf miraculously died of a plague. So you died of the plague. Then he told the tribe of Levi, which he came from, who's with me? And they all came on his side. And then he said, you know who else? So whoever else, worshipped the golden calf, you go out there and kill them. So it was a bloody mess. Let's put it that way. And that ended that story. And God says, you know what, I'm not gonna take revenge on them now, but the day when they will do something else wrong, I'm gonna add this to their account. So I have this always in their account that they worship a golden calf. And like it's like your teacher that you misbehaved. Okay, today everything's gonna go okay, but I'm writing it down. And the next time you do it, not only will you get it for then, but I'm gonna also add this to your collection. Okay. Whew. Now you all know the story, and every time you read the story, you still think to yourself, you scratch your heads, what's going on over here? What is this all about? The most profound question is, how could this possibly be after 40 days of having the greatest revelation in the history of mankind, never happened before and never happened since, that God himself took you out of Egypt and made you a free people, etc., etc. How? In 40 days, they go from this great revelation of Naaseh and Nishma. Remember, Moses had come to them and asked them, are you willing to fulfill everything that God says to you? And these people say, Naaseh and Nishma, not only we, what God tells us to do. From this lofty position, from this position of Naaseh and Nishma, where the angels themselves went out of their minds when they heard that these people are saying, Naaseh, we will do and then we will listen. Because you know what? That's not a good thing to do when you're signing a contract. Let me be a little honest with you. Okay? Now we have realtors here in the room. When someone's going to sell you a house, the best thing to do is first read, then sign. Don't sign and then read. Okay? But the Jews went the opposite way. They said, Naaseh, whatever he tells us we'll do. Then Nishma, then we'll listen to what he has what to say. We're so confident that he has our best interest at heart that we're doing it, no matter what. We were up here. We were up here and the angels were freaking out, and God himself, wow, look at this. He gave them 2 crowns, one for Naaseh, one for Nishma. They were in the best circumstances. 40 days later, they come and they kill Hur. Hur was Miriam's son, Moses' nephew, because he stood against them, so they killed him. Then they went to Aaron, and they said, make us a god. And Aaron produces a god for them, and they're dancing around. This is the God that took us out of Egypt. So this is the main question that commentators have for thousands of years been trying to answer. How could this possibly have been? And we'll get to a couple of answers. But let's talk about the incident itself. Okay? If you look at the text is ambiguous. It doesn't really give us a blow by blow account of what happened. Okay? We know that Moses was late. Okay, doesn't tell us really much. Why was he late? What did he do? Was he late? Okay, they miscalculated. Fine. That day was a cloudy day, so they didn't know it was at 12, not at 12 o'clock. And then it says in the Medrash, a miraculous thing happened. The Satan showed them like Moshe laying on a bed, looked like he died. This was a vision that people saw. Oh, fine. So they thought that he died. So they approach Aaron. They don't approach him with a sense of humility and say, "Hey, you know what? You have a plan? Moses is gone. Where are we going from here?" No, they don't do that. They come with a demand, and the demand is replace Moshe right now. We need Moshe's replacement right now, and that replacement is going to be a God that's going to lead us instead of Moshe Rabbeinu. Aaron. Because we're always going to try to defend Aaron. Aaron is one of our good guys, right? Aaron is on our team. He's a good man. Moses came down and he embraced his younger brother. Moses was his little brother. He embraced him. He watched over him. He went with him to Pharaoh. Everything Moses said to do, Aaron did. He listened to him. I mean, he was like one. They were bound at the hip. So Aaron tries to delay them. He's not going to convince them otherwise, because he saw that they killed Hur, they killed his nephew, so he wasn't going to delay them. So Aaron says, you know what, give me your jewelry. The people were so overcome with this desire for a leader that they ripped off their own jewelry. They went ahead, they didn't ask their wives, their daughters, or their sons. They gave them the jewelry. Now, what did Aaron do with it? All it said is that, give me the jewelry. So they give him the jewelry, and what did it say here? Let's go back to the verse so we understand here. He says, Aaron said to remove the jewelry, the Torah removed the rings, and gave it to Aaron. He took it from their hands and bound it up in a cloth and fashioned it into a molten calf. Now, how do you fashion this into a molten calf? I mean, how do you do that from a bunch of rings that are sitting in a handkerchief? How do you get a golden calf? So Aaron took this and he threw it into a furnace. He took the gold and he threw it into a furnace. So he threw some furnace. Now what happens to gold when you put it into a furnace? It melts. Goodbye. So that should have been the end of discussion. Oh, I'm so sorry. Your gold melted and have a wonderful day and goodbye. No. But there was a person there by the name of Micha, and Micha had on himself, he had something that was a magical piece of paper. What was the magical piece of paper? Years before, there was a fellow by the name of Joseph. You remember him? Joseph, okay? Joseph, before he died, made the Jews swear they won't let him be buried in Egypt. They couldn't take him to Israel because he was the mashbir. He was the sustainer. So he died in Egypt. They put him in a coffin, and they kept the coffin. Now the Egyptians knew that sooner or later they're going to take Joseph out of Egypt, but to them, Joseph was a hero. So they took his coffin with him and they threw it into the Nile River. They dumped it into the river, knowing the Jews is never going to find that. The Jews are leaving Egypt. Moshe Rabbeinu says, we have to fulfill Joseph's wish. Okay, so where is he? So Moses is Moses. He knows that he's in the river. But how are you going to go get a coffin out of the river? So Moses took a piece of paper and he wrote on it, Alei Shoyer. Alei Shoyer. Alei means come up. And Shoyer means ox. Why did he refer to Joseph as an ox? Because Jacob referred to him. When Jacob blessed him, Jacob says, you should have the strength and the beauty of an ox. So his nickname was Shoyer. So Moses wrote on a piece of paper, Alei Shoyer, and threw it into the river. Okay? And when he threw it into the river with some other writings, mystical writings, it rose up. The coffin rose up, and Moses took it. At that moment when Moses did this fellow, this nefarious guy by the name of Micah, saw that, and he grabbed the paper. He was able to get a hold of that paper and held it. He had it. When Aaron threw in the gold, he took that piece of paper and he threw it into the furnace. What did the paper say? You remember what did the paper say? Alei Shor, which means rise up what? There you go. There's the calf. There's the calf. Alei Shor, that's how the calf came out. Because he threw this magical, mystical paper into the furnace, and he says, it said Alei Shor, come out ox, and the golden calf walked out. That's how the golden calf came out. Aaron did not stand there with engraving tools and stood there and engraved it into a golden calf. It walked itself out of this furnace, Alei Shor, Alei Shor. Now everything here is mystical. I mean, in other words, it's Kabbalistic, right? It's Kabbalistic because if you take a piece of paper, if you go home today and get your jewelry, put it in the oven, and you write on a piece of paper, Alei Shor, nothing is going to happen. All that's going to happen is that paper is going to burn, and your house is going to go next, okay? And your jewelry will be the thing. So don't try it, okay? But we're talking about the Torah, we're talking about biblical times, and this is how the golden calf walked out. This guy was a nefarious person. Later on, we're going to meet him again, the Pesel Micha. But in the meantime, this is the story of how Aaron himself was like freaked out. The Shor came out, and here it is. Once the calf came out, everybody saw. I'll give you 1 second. Everybody saw. Wow, this is like, come on. This generally doesn't happen. Even Houdini, even David Copperfield couldn't pull off such a magical trick in the best Vegas, a magical act. And all of a sudden, here comes a calf. It walks out there, and people saw it, and they started to say, "Eile lekech Yisrael." This is your God. Go ahead, Helen.
What is the source of this story?
The Medrash. This is an oral tradition. This is this is an oral tradition. Okay. So now we know this is it. Aaron again tries to delay them because now they want to make a feast and everything. He says, wait. Don't worship it now. Wait. We know, okay, special, good, fine, great. Let's wait till tomorrow. We'll go to bed. We'll have a good night's sleep. Tomorrow we'll wake up. And now what was his intention? That he'll delay them. And who's going to show up? Moses, and Moses will take care of the situation. But they didn't even wait for Moses to come back. They woke up early in the morning because they were so inflamed with this desire to worship this thing. Boom. And they did it. And they worshipped it, and they sacrificed to it. And this is where God's sitting up in heaven looking down at them and saying, now, if you keep going in the story of the Medrash, we know that Erev Rav Olei Mohem, there was a multitude of Egyptians that went out with the Jewish people from Egypt. You know what? Moses was not a popular guy. Think about it. If someone comes here to Long Beach and makes 10 proclamations and pulls off 10 miracles, you know what? A lot of people are going to follow him. That's for sure. Okay? So a lot of Egyptians were enamored with Moses, the man. They weren't enamored with Judaism. They were enamored with Moses. This is called celebrity worship. Oh, look at him. You know what? He was the first great celebrity of the world. Everybody wanted a piece of Moshe Rabbeinu. Come on, he's so popular. So now, later on, when we try to justify what happened here, a lot of the blame is put on these people, on these Egyptians. They were the ones that started it. The Eila Rav. They weren't interested in Judaism. They were interested in Moses. To them, once Moses left, now they're in a dilemma. So this is it. But okay, so if that's a good justification that the instigators were these Egyptian rabble rousers, fine. But certainly there was many Jews that tagged along in this, and this is what made God angry, and this is why he sent Moses down, and this is why Moses confronted God. I mean, don't try this at home. When God said, I'm going to destroy them, Moses said, if you destroy them, take me out of the book. Take me out, take me out of the book that you are writing, because my destiny is tied up in these people's destiny, and that's going to be it. So eventually, he kind of placates God, and he says, look, and it's interesting the arguments he uses. He says, you know what? If you kill these people here, you know what the world is going to say? The world is going to say, the reason why you took them out of Egypt was to kill them in the desert, because you don't have the strength to fight the 31, kings or whatever are in Canaan, so you killed them. So the Egyptians are going to say, okay, well, against us, he was strong, but against everybody else. So God said, okay, that's a good argument, okay? So I'm not going to kill them, I'm going to let them live, but eventually I'm going to, the day that I reckon with them, I will reckon with them. All right. Go ahead, Marcy. Okay, anybody? So now I would just want to get into a couple of different two philosophers that talk about what went in the Jewish minds and why this could happen. But we'll take some questions. Anybody have a question? No? Okay, go ahead, Marcy.
So that piece of paper, there were two things that happened with it. The first time it went in, and out came
Joseph.
the coffin of Joseph.
Correct.
And then Mika grabbed it and he threw it in, and out came the golden cow.
Correct. That's right.
Anything else? Or
No, that's about it. That's the last we heard of the paper. I'm looking for it.
Oh, you're looking for it. Can't find
I
it.
can't find it. Everywhere I go, it eludes me. But that's it. So you can't, yeah,
Oh, real quickie.
of course.
If a golden calf walks out of a fire,
Yeah.
how can the people be blamed for not thinking it's a god?
Because you have free choice. Ultimately, you have a free choice. I mean, if you do believe in the ultimate, this is sorcery. Now they knew about sorcery because they grew up in Egypt. They were magicians there all the time. They should have said to themselves, "This is a magic trick. This is not the God that took us out of Egypt." God specifically said in the first two commandments what? And what was the second commandment? And what did he say after no other gods? Do not make what? Don't make a graven image. And this is the graven image. I mean, this is the ultimate. It came out like, "Hi, I'm a graven image." Like with a sign. Coming out, holding up a sign.
Wait a minute.
Oh. Okay, go ahead. And then,
Oh, sorry. But wait a minute.
yes?
They didn't get the Ten Commandments yet.
Right.
Yes, they did. They did. This is after the Ten Commandments.
Oh,
What?
the second
No. They already heard from God the Ten Commandments. Now Moses went up to get the tablets to bring it down in a written form, but they got already the Ten Commandments.
Is there any written information about the size of the golden calf?
It's a calf. I don't know the size. I'm not sure.
Medium.
No, but
Yeah.
Depending on, there's the idea of it's all mystical and Kabbalah-like, but there's a size of the amount of the weight of the gold they brought, and thinking this little thing could be quite.
No, I don't think it was this small. I think it walked out there was like a little calf.
Okay.
You know, I mean, if it weighed 80 pounds to a 400 pound, I'm not sure, but it was sizable enough to worship.
But Rabbi, all thinking is God knows everything.
Okay.
God created everything.
Yes.
So if God knows and created everything,
Yeah.
what's happening everywhere with the Jewish people,
Right.
it's the mover and shaker is God.
Okay. So it is an excellent question. This is a question that is dealt with many places in Judaism and philosophies and Kabbalistically and everything. God's knowledge is not our knowledge. The prophet says, my thoughts are not your thoughts, my ways are not your ways. So it's very difficult. Maimonides himself, we're talking about the Rambam, wrote that he believes 100% what you said, that God knows the future, but his knowledge does not affect us. We have complete free choice. Absolutely free choice. The fact that he knows, that's his business. But the fact that we're down here and you have a donut and kale in front of you, okay, you have a free choice. You can go for the donut or you can go for the kale. That's your free choice. The fact that 99.99% of the people will go for the kale, that's their business. Okay, that's their business. The 0.1% go for the donut, that's his business. But that's irrefutable that in Judaism we believe 100% in free choice. And everybody standing there that moment made a decision in their lives. Now you may be overwhelmed by, oh, look at this magic trick. Oh, look, and you may come up and say to God, look, you know what, come on. This is a good trick. This is a very good trick. You have to admit. So, but still, everyone there, just like we wake up in the morning and we look in the mirror and you have a choice of what kind of a person you're going to be that day. God is not going to force you. Now, the fact that God knows what happens, that doesn't matter to us because his knowledge doesn't affect us. So the fact is when you choose the donut and then you say, well, what should I do? God knew I was going to eat the donut. But that's not an excuse. You have within yourself the power to choose the kale. To choose the kale. Don't tell me you can't, when you pick up the first cigarette to smoke, I was a smoker, and I'm telling you, the first time you pick up the cigarette, that's your choice. And you can't tell me, well, God knew that 5,000 years ago, he created the world, that Perelmuter is going to have a cigarette. That has nothing to do with has any effect whatsoever on my choice. How do you reconcile? When you know what? When we'll pass away, we'll go up to heaven, you'll stand in front of God, you'll ask him this question. But you cannot use this as an excuse. I killed somebody, but you know what? The guy was destined to die today. Wasn't Heidi said that God knows everything, and today was the last day of his life, so I took his life. Who asked you to? I mean, there's many ways of a person dying. There's 1,000 ways I could have killed them. Why? So there's no excuse to that. So there's no excuse to these people. But what did happen? Let's go back to our original question of how could this have possibly happened in 40 days? 40 days is such a short time. I mean, think about it. And they were at the heights of spirituality, and they descended to the depths of idolatry. Okay, so comes along. I'm just going to bring, because we have just maybe 10 minutes. So one of the great philosophers was named Rabbi Yehuda Halevi. Yehuda Halevi lived in the 11th century, and he wrote a book called the Kuzari. Kuzari is a book of Jewish philosophy. It's an incredible...
What does it mean? What's the name mean?
Kuzari. It comes from the word Kazar. Kuzari. HaKuzari. What's the book about? The book is that the Jews lived in a place in Europe, what today would probably be Russia. It was called Kazar. And there was a king, Kazar, the Kuzaris. And they had a king, and the king the people had no religion. So the king invited a Jew, a Muslim, and a Christian to come debate in front of him, and he would pick the one religion, and everybody in this land would then become that religion. And who did he pick? The Jew. And the legend was that these people converted to Judaism, and for a period of 100 or so years, they were. Now, Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, this philosopher, this songwriter, this poet, heard about this, and he wrote a book based upon the debate. Now, of course, he's writing from a perspective of Judaism. So he writes, and the book is, we have the book today, anybody could buy the book, and he tackles many of the problems that we face in the Bible. So the question is asked to the rabbi, how could this possibly have been? So Yehuda Levi records that this is what he said. The rabbi said, look, he tells the king, we're talking about ancient times. You see, the problem with studying this in an American world of 2025 is that we have completely different sensibilities. If I said to you today, I have a burning desire to worship an idol, I have to. You don't understand, it's taken over my entire existence. I'd like you to please join me. I have a bus outside. We're going to go to Home Depot. We're going to buy some wood. We'll fashion, I don't have the magic trick to make a golden calf, but we'll buy some wood. We'll fashion an idol. We'll bring it back. And we're all going to dance and make a party for this idol. Are you with me? No. How many people are coming with me? They said, Rabbi, you should go to Kaiser, because that's where my medical team is. There's a good psychiatrist. Go see him, talk it out, because you're crazy. Because why? Because nobody today has a desire to worship an idol. But imagine if we were in a time when idolatry was so prevalent that everyone, and that's the opening statement, all of the people in those times worshipped images. Worshipped images. All right? Someone wrote, how did religion start? I'm not talking about from Judaism, but how did religion start? They wanted to be able to deal with the weather. Religion started with people's will, how to deal with the weather. You know, these are primitive people. The weather is very unpredictable, right? Very unpredictable. You can have in the Middle East a drought. That means God must be angry, right? You can have a storm, and God is angry. You know, in the spring it blooms. God is good. You know, summer it's warm. God is happy. You know, and then the God of happiness disappears for 6 months. He dies. You know, during winter, but he's resurrected. And you know, in the summer. So that's how primitive people worship. That's how, you know, I'm not talking about Judaism, but that's how religion evolved, because people want to have a relationship with the weather. That's what it was. So here, everybody in those days worshipped images. Okay? In Egypt, we were there for over 200 years. Even the philosophers who demonstrated the union existence of the deity were unable to dispense with an image to which they directed their worship. Even if you said there's a God in heaven that is invisible, but definitely he gave us an image to worship, whether it's the sun, whether it's the moon, whether it's the wind, whether it's mountains, or whether it's man-made, where we actually create an image. So everybody worshipped images in those days. They explained to the masses that this image attracted some divine quality to be shown the same reverence we give to our holy places. Right? So let's say Beis HaMikdash, we come in there. We say the Beis HaMikdash is holy, right? You couldn't come into the temple. So they said the same holiness that our holy places, this image holds the holiness to it. Now, if we all believed that, for example, this phone here, if I had the only phone in the world, right? It was magical, mystical. Look what I can do with my phone. I have every knowledge. And we're going to worship this phone, which we do. And by the way, you said you don't worship idols, but you do worship idols, because this is our idol today, okay? And what would happen? I would say, this is how we worship. And we would put this phone on a pedestal, and we'd all bow down to it, and we'd all worship it, and blah, 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 blah. And here's the kicker. The masses could only be persuaded to accept the worship of a tangible image. If I came to you and said, I want us all to pray to this invisible God in heaven, people would say what to me? Nah, come on. I need something. I need to hold on to something. Give me something to hold on to. That's how our primitive and that's how our humanistic minds work. And that's what he goes on to say. And that's what the people's problem were. They had Moses. They had something to hold on to. He was their direct link. They weren't rejecting God. They still believed in God, but they believed that God was invisible and Moses was their key. Moses was their middleman. They held on to him. Now the middleman is gone. I need an image. Make me an image, Aaron. And that's what they wanted. So Rabbi Yehuda, what he's saying is that they were not idolaters. They didn't transgress on the issue of idolatry. They just transgressed on the prohibition of making a graven image. Even if you believed in God, meaning I believe in God, God is up there in heaven, yes, but I need an image that I could then say that God shared some of his divinity with this calf. And look at this. Look at that calf walks out, a miracle. So it must be that this God gave some divinity to the calf. And that was their mistake. So they didn't, according to these commentators, their sin was not idolatry, their sin was the graven image. Don't make a graven image. Especially when it gets a little confusing, because God says, just follow this for a second. God says, don't make any images of me. Yet, when he tells Moses to make an ark, what does he tell them to put on the ark? Cherubim, images of children with wings. What is that? That's not a graven image. So what's the difference between the calf and the cherubim? One is commanded, one is prohibited. So when God says to you, don't do it, I don't do it. You know it because God forbids me making a graven image. Then he tells Moses, make the cherubim. This is permissible. And that's what Yehuda Levi says. So Yehuda Levi says that they were not breaking off their complete bond to God, but they needed that middleman. They needed something. And this makes perfect sense because the next day when Moses comes down after 120 days of coming down, going up, bringing the second tablets, Moses gives them the commandments to build a tabernacle. Who needs a tabernacle? Why? God needs a tabernacle. God is everywhere. Why do we need a tabernacle? We needed that image. We needed to have that home. We needed to have a shulchan, a table. We needed a menorah. We needed all of these things. So God said, okay, have it. Okay, I'm going to give Jay 1 second, Jay. Let me just go on to the second. That's one explanation of how we fell so high quickly. But we end this session with Maimonides, as we always do. Eventually we get back, sooner or later we get to the Rambam. I don't know how, but we get to the Rambam because he's our favorite Ashkenazi. And Sarah there, she's looking, mon Dieu, she's thinking in her mouth, what is he saying? What is he saying? The Rambam was an Ashkenazi, even though he signed on his letters, Moshe ben Maimon, Svardi Tahor, that I am the pure Svardi, pure. Anyways, what does he say? So his son, Avram, we talked a little about him last night at our Talmud class. Avram was the one son that survived him. And he writes that my father wrote like this. And I want to just make a quote. Let's see if I can make the quote over here. I'm going to find it. He says like this. My father would have said like this. Miracles, however awe-inspiring, miracles, however awe-inspiring, cannot change human nature. Sorry, they don't. They don't change human nature. They only can momentarily shake the human soul out of its everyday concepts. Meaning, if you're lethargic and and all of a sudden you see a miracle, it can kind of shake you up. It's not going to change you, but they cannot in themselves effect a lasting transformation. And Maimonides uses a beautiful statement, and in his Guide for the Perplexed says, it's the inevitability of gradualness. Think about this for a second. The inevitability of gradualness. How do people change? Slowly, inch by inch. They don't change overnight. The Jewish people that came out of Egypt were imbued with idolatry. That's all they saw in Egypt. And they came out, God revealed himself. God thought one revelation and we have now a new person. Doesn't work that way, Rambam says. The inevitability of gradualness. Change comes over time. Slowly but surely, slowly but surely. Every day, consistency, working hard. That's how you change. It's like one thing at a time. Overnight it doesn't work. He shows, and he brings an example from Elijah. If you know the story of Elijah lived at a time when idolatry was prevalent. And Elijah railed against idolatry. And then finally one day he decided that he's going to take upon himself to do a challenge against 400 of the false prophets. We know the story. It was in Har Carmel. He told them, you build an altar, I'll build an altar, and we'll see. Whichever God is real, he'll come and take the sacrifice. They built an altar and nothing happened. He built an altar, God came and ate the sacrifice. Everybody, all the Jews that were surrounding him, it was this first pay-per-view event. Because this was transmitted around the whole. All of the people that were in the stadium rose up and won, and they said, "Hashem hu Elokim, God is our God." Because like this, they were maybe what's his name, George Foreman, maybe Muhammad Ali. Foreman, Ali, who's going to win the Thrill in Manila? If you remember that fight, who's going to win this boxing match? Ali, Foreman, Ali, Ali. Okay, so now Ali, the champion, and everybody screamed, "Hashem hu Elokim, God is our God." So Elijah thought to himself, "Aha! I won them over. They transformed." What happened the next day? The next verse is Elijah's on the run. He's on the run. What happened to Hashem hu Elokim? And all the true prophets are being persecuted by the very same people that said, "Oh, we trust in you." Miracles, however awe-inspiring, cannot change human nature. Elijah pulled off a good one. He said, "God, come on, take this thing." A fire came down. Everybody went, "Woohoo!" You know what? Wow, that's great. We won the World Series. We won the Super Bowl. Whatever it is. The next day, guess what? We're back to the donut. For one day, we ate the kale. One day, we had the kale. Yay, we had the kale. But then the next day, we woke up and said, "What am I, nuts? What am I eating kale for? A donut?" Okay, fine. That's good. So that's Maimonides' answer to why the people is, because it took time. Slowly but surely. And eventually, guess what happens? It took a long time for Jews to expel this thing from within them towards idolatry. And by the time the Second Temple era comes around, it's gone. Idolatry had ended. Basically, we don't find any instance in the Second Temple where Jews were attracted. First Temple, yes. First Temple, we were still struggling. But afterwards, we were, and today we're like, no one knows, who cares about idolatry? No one cares, except, and here's already, this is what we call a paid advertisement. This is all biblical. Now I got to go to America today. What about today? Here, 1 second. We don't have a golden calf. But we have something else.
Yes.
We have this. We have printed money. See, this is an American dollar. It's worth, you know how much Canadian? A lot more than a Canadian, because he put tariffs on Canadian money. So it's more than a Canadian loony or toonie. Okay? So what do we have? What do we have over here? What it says here? It says over here, what does it say? I look over here. In God we trust. In God we trust. Everybody else pays cash. Okay? That's it. Only God gets credit. This is what we worship. Okay? This is what we worship. Because you know what? If you give out, I'll put tomorrow, I'm giving out free chumishes. Tomorrow, I bought 1,000 free chumishes, and I have them in front of the JCC, and I'm giving them out tomorrow. Everyone gets a free chumash who shows up. Yeah, two homeless guys that don't know what's going on. They'll come by, they'll get a chumash, they'll sell it, whatever it is. Okay, I put out tomorrow, I'm giving out free cash. Mm-hmm. Meet me tomorrow, 11 o'clock at the JCC. What happens? A mob. I have to call the police to close the street. Why? Because what do we worship? The golden calf. So when we say we don't worship idolatry, yes, of course, we don't worship an idol, but we worship something. Or I said before about the phone. If I said to you, okay, you know what God wants, I had a revelation this morning, and I know I'm cutting into rabbi time, but this is going to be it. God told me to go out there and smash all the phones. Smash the phones from everybody you see. Tell them to smash their phones. It's idolatry. How many people are listening? Nobody. Rabbi, smash your phone. Have a good day. Goodbye. But we're not doing it. So, idolatry takes many different forms, and we have to be careful what we worship, because the only true thing that is worth worshiping is Hashem. That's the only thing that's loyal, consistent. Do it. It's safe. It's sound. It's been proven. Thank you. And now for the last few minutes, as we started a new custom here in the class, it's called Ask the Rabbi. I don't guarantee I'll know an answer, but if you shoot away, I'll try to give you my best answer. Harriet, you'll start first.
I was just wondering if Hollywood referred to this Parsha when they made the Ten Commandments.
Absolutely. What are you talking about? Cecil B. DeMille, of course, looked at this. Where do you think he got the story from?
But
And now Burt Lancaster as Moshe Rabbeinu, that's a good choice. I can't say, well, not bad. Not bad. He's a handsome dude. Was a very nice guy, handsome guy. But, like anything that Hollywood does, it spruces it up. It makes it big, But, of course, where else you think they can make up the story? Nobody can imitate the story of the Bible. No way. You get the best writers. This is a story that only God and Moses themselves could come up with. That's it. Nobody else.
I have a question about chicken, which I think I've asked before, and it's
No. Okay, go ahead. Chicken is very tasty when it's roasted, or
fish are parov,
fish are parav.
meat,
Meat is meat.
basari.
Correct.
Why is chicken considered meat?
Because we went through this. Because in the Talmud times, people were making a mistake between white meat and white meat. Chicken has white meat, goat has white meat, other animals have white meat. The rabbis were worried that people are going to mistake this white meat for this white meat. And in the Tractate of Chulin, you could look it up. As we said last night in the Talmud, you can look it up. The rabbis decided that a chicken is a live animal. And even though that fish itself fish is a separate category altogether. A fish has to be shechted. You can't eat a chicken without shechting it. So it has similar properties to basar itself. So we're just going to take away the confusion and make chicken basar. And that was that. And since we talked about last night at the Talmud class, since this was enacted prior to the completion of the Talmud, its obligation rested on whom? Everybody. It was a custom that was accepted by everybody. So it's not Sfardim, Ashkenazim, Mizrahi, this, that. Everybody accepted this, and it became law, and that was that.
Does it have anything to do with, this was another Chabad rabbi told me this, and I didn't, because they walk on the earth like they don't swim in the ocean. They
Yeah.
walk on the earth like cows and goats, and
Yeah.
is
You
it
have
also
no
with
fear.
that?
Sure. I mean, it's all interconnected because they're animals. They're an animal, and they're domesticated, just like a cow is, and just like a sheep is. And again, but I think that the driving issue was not to be confused. So you know what? Take away the confusion. Goodbye. So your chicken parmesan is going to have to be made with what they call parcheesi.
Yeah.
You ever try parcheesi? Parcheesi is parv cheese. Okay? Parv cheese. And it tastes like, you know what? Parv cheese. Okay? So, but you could use it on your chicken parmesan if that's what you like. Have a wonderful day. But today they're making, like if you go to Trader Joe's, they have parva chicken. Now, like the what do you call that? Vegetarian chicken. So you can have your cheese with the chicken, with the parva chicken. Fine, okay. And have a good day. Some of it are not bad, but it's not the same thing.
Okay. I get the impression that there are specific instructions, very specific with a lot of things. And yet, when you said that change comes slowly, there's no how to do it
Change.
from what you say.
Okay.
So how do people change?
Okay, so there's two things. You brought up two issues here. One is Judaism is based on a religion of deeds, meaning that we made a covenant with God that we are going to be loyal to Him and He's going to be loyal to us. He'll watch us and we'll be His people. What is the covenant going to be about? That there's certain rules and regulations I need you to follow. These rules are immutable. Means that's it. Meaning have no God, no other God before me. Keep the Sabbath. Honor your parents. No, the Torah. Fine. That's one set that we deal with. So these are in the world of legalistic expectations. Let's say this is what we need to follow. We follow the rules. Okay. Now comes a separate issue: how to live a good life and how to live a meaningful life. That's a separate issue. So how to live a good life? There are many things that we do that are kind of outside of the legal world. Let's say, for example, how we eat. How we eat. There's a couple of ways how you can eat. You could come to the table and sit down and in 5 seconds be finished with your meal. That's Americans. We come up with this idea called What's it called? Thank you. Fast food. Who in their wildest imagination, if you went back 500 years, said that there's going to be a place you could literally run through and finish eating before you get out of the parking lot? Okay? You don't have to wait. I don't even know why they give bags. They should just give you the burger. Here. Because most people eat it right there and then. So drive by, here's a burger. I'm going to save on the wrapper. I'm going to save on the bag. Here's a few extra napkins. Go goodbye. So there is a different story. There I have to tame myself and I have to now work and exercise on living a healthy, when I say healthy, both physical and emotional and spiritual life. So there I'm challenged with a characteristic that I'm born with, natural abilities that I'm born with, and that's where change comes. So for example, I'm lazy. I'm a lazy guy. I like to just sit around and lounge around. That's called a teenager. Okay, for other words. Okay, I don't want to do anything. Did you clean your room yet? Why is it already? It's already Pesach. Why do I need to clean my room? Or have you done your assignment yet? It's due in 3 weeks. I have 20 days to worry about it. Right? So those are characteristics that I need to change. How do I change from being lazy? Slowly. The next day, if all of a sudden your teenager wakes up and he becomes this unbelievable force of energy, he's on drugs. Mm-hmm. Check his his cupboard or somewhere. If all of a sudden he's doing things with such alacrity, who the heck is this kid? But that's how change comes. So characteristic behavior change very slowly. And as a therapist, that what? You go step by step. As we call it, yidel by yidel. Little by little, yidel by yidel. And that's how you do it. So that's a change. Jay?
Okay. The inevitability of what you said?
Gradualness. The inevitability of gradualness. You can't. Now, are there times where people change overnight? Yes. There are instances. There are instances where people literally make a commitment and change overnight. But that's the exception. That's the outlier. Meaning that, I'm a lazy guy, and enough of this laziness. And I make a commitment that from tomorrow on, I'm going to do everything when it comes to me, and I'm going to act with alacrity, I'm going to act with zealousness, I'm going to really act, and I stick that way. But wow. There are those kind of people, but they're usually the outlier. When we, as Americans, on January 1st, we make 175 million resolutions. By January the 15th, 165 million have been broken. 10 million stick to January 20th. By that time, everybody's out. And that's what it is. Jay, go ahead.
One more thing that Aaron reminded
I'm just going to, do me one favor, Jay. I'm just going to let the people in Facebook go home.